Okay, we'll get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to All Saints Church. My name is Walt Stein. I'm an educator and a counselor for Hope for Bereaved. And tonight we're going to be talking about coping with the holidays. And I have three speakers that will be sharing how they got through that first holiday season after the death of their loved one. And we'll share some information about how to do things differently, how to maybe change things up. And but before we get started, I would just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. The restroom is out the door to the right. There are two restrooms out there. When this is done, we're going to have refreshments out at the table. We have cookies and we have lemonade and tea. So, if you'd like to help yourself to it. And I think that's it for the housekeeping, the restrooms. So, what's that? So, for those that are here, the holiday season probably is one of the hardest times of the year to go through after we experience the death of a loved one. For me, that first holiday season after my dad died, I was so busy taking care of my mom that I never really got to grieve my dad. And I was doing things automatically. But it was after the death of my partner, and he died in January the 6th of 2009. And that Christmas that followed after that was hard because that's when everything was hitting. I lost my dad, I lost my partner, and 3 months the exact date of my partner dying, my job was sent to Texas. Our company merged with another company. And it was just a really rough time for me. And, but that year I learned that it was okay to ask for help. And I called my partner's cousin, Barbara, and I asked her to come up, if she would come up and help me to decorate the Christmas tree. And we made a stocking full with all kind of poinsettias and holly sticking out of the top of it, and went to the cemetery and placed it on a grave and came back and decorated the tree. And what was really neat was the fact that we stood there and we were telling stories about him and laughing. And at times we cried, but it was given that permission to do that, to remember him in that way. And then going to his sister's house for Thanksgiving, for Christmas dinner, I took a candle with me. And I was advised to do that by the counselor that was seeing me at that time at Hope. And that candle represented him at the dinner table. And his sister said to me, "What's that for?" I said, "We were going to light the candle." I said, "This candle represents Wes. It's bringing him to our celebration." And that night, nobody was saying anything. It was so quiet, and I kept trying to get conversations going, and nobody was talking. So we ended up going into the living room afterwards, and we started exchanging Christmas presents, and I gave his niece, Madeline, she was about 5 years old at that time, I gave her the stocking I got him one year for Christmas, and it was a stocking with Tigger's head on top of it. And I said, "This was Uncle Wes." I said, "Now I want you to have it." And she went running around the living room hollering, "I got Uncle Wes's stocking, I got his stocking." And the next thing I know, how it started, I cannot remember, but we were sitting there telling the funniest stories we could remember about him, and there was no crying, it was just laughter. And it was so good, and it was like everybody was just sharing and feeling, and I share a lot of this stuff with people today and give them suggestions of how to get through. But tonight, I have people who are going to speak on how they handled that first holiday season. And then midway through, we're going to do a candle lighting ceremony in memory of our loved ones that have died. So our first speaker tonight is Kristen. So I invite her to come up and speak.
Sharing this in the open. A lot of people know my story. Hi, I'm Kristen Moses.
I am a mom, a wife, a social worker, an administrator, and a bereaved parent, actually. So when I first got married, this is weird because I got married in this church 27 years ago, November of 1997. And soon after that, my husband and I, we found out that we were expecting twin daughters. And early on, like we found out like in January, we got married in November. So like, oh, whoa, whoops. So, wow. So at that time, talk about grief and loss. I was working for Syracuse City School District as a social worker, and I lost my job. And I was pregnant with twins. We just bought a house, and we were not even married a year. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I grieved my job, which I loved. I had only been there a year, not even. And then what happened after that? So then I went to work at the Cross Hospital, and I was doing nights and overnights, pregnant with twins, trying to figure it out because we had a mortgage to pay, and we were nervous and we're scared. And I was able to, because at that time, Adrienne remembers, like everybody got hired back. You lose your job in June, you got hired back at the end of August. So I got my social work job back, and I was like, oh, good, okay, everything's aligning the way it should be. And then it was the Labor Day storm. I don't know if anyone remembers the Labor Day storm. 1990, no, it was 1998. It's 98, yeah, I married in 97. This was 98. And we had our new house. I had a beautiful nursery ready for my girls. They were going to be girls. And ready to have these beautiful babies and start our life together, right? We'd been married not even a year, and all this exciting stuff. Dream job, dream family, dream house. It was awesome. Then the Labor Day storm hit, and, sometimes that does stuff. And nurses understand that barometric pressure sometimes can force people into labor. So I went to labor early, very early, like 3 months early, and I was on bed rest for 6 weeks, ended up giving birth to twin daughters because I had sepsis. Grace and Sarah were born September 30th, 1998. Grace died in my arms October 1st, and Sarah died October 2nd. And we celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary November 15th, and then we had our first Christmas together right after that. So, there was a lot of firsts and a lot of hard, and we didn't even have traditions yet to fall back on. So we had to figure out how to create traditions in grief together as this new thing. So we acknowledged our pain, and we acknowledged that we grieved differently. Moms grieve differently than dads, men than women, and personalities. Grief is unique. So in that first Christmas together, we did a lot of, it was hard because people said ridiculous things, as they do, well-intentioned, ridiculous things. Oh, you'll have others. Oh, aren't you lucky you're young? You'll have more babies. Great, thanks. It doesn't help me this second. Thanks for that. But so, we had to identify not only as just getting to get to know each other as a couple, and then bereaved parents, and then our first holidays with our families together, which is so fun sometimes, right? So we did a lot of talking and setting boundaries with our families about what we would and would not do, and said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to understand, whatever we did before, we're going to be doing things differently. This is our opportunity to recreate traditions, which I think is beautiful in grief. You get the opportunity, like I'm always looking for silver linings, like the silver lining is you get the chance to bring, like Walt said, bring your loved one into the grief and the tradition and the honor and the holiday. So my mom, I really wanted a tree topper with an angel, but I wanted twin angels because my daughters were twins. So my mom found these little baby angels, ceramic angels, and she sewed wings, like little wings on the back, and she sewed them together and put them on a tree topper, and they've been our tree topper for the last 27 years. And my 4 children that are living, they know their sisters, they're part of it. Like, you know, we've always acknowledged their birthdays, their everything. And they, you know, they argue and fight over who's going to put Grace and Sarah on the top. And they're just very much living with us. Like, their memory's very alive. Even though my 4 children never knew them, they know they had older sisters and that they were part of our family, and we acknowledge them, and we talk about it, and it's okay to be sad that we had sisters that died, and it's okay to, you know, feel joy that we had them too, right? It's that yin and yang. But I think in the holidays, it's really important to acknowledge the expectations of the holidays, have those boundaries, be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not in the right mindset to do that. It's okay to change traditions and add things in, do things differently, create new ones. I think with social media right now, you see a lot of stuff in your face that's hard because it might intensify your emotions and remind you when people are getting together with everybody and then your person might not be there. That's difficult. So it's just acknowledge that maybe you want to turn that off. Like, that might not be something you want to look at. But honoring your loved one is really important. Setting boundaries, self-care, taking care of yourself, making sure you're eating, resting, exercising, taking those quiet moments and actually like sitting in your feelings and not pushing them down, like acknowledging those moments of feelings, I think is really important that way, because I think one of the most beautiful gifts my daughters gave me is the ability to talk about grief and loss and death. And as a school social worker, I ran grief groups for 22 years, and it was my favorite thing because I was comfortable talking about it, and that was such a gift, right? So looking at that positive, but seeking support when you need it, and taking that mindful moment, taking a deep breath when you need to. Angels are always something that, you know, coping with the holidays, angel ornaments and hanging those ornaments every Christmas on our tree. That's something that we love as a family. And also having patience, as I said, with others who say ridiculous things. But it's okay to be sad and have joy and laugh and have those memories and talk at the same time. I think that yin and yang, that, you know, those two separate things, adults don't feel like you can do that. But if we watch how children grieve, they are our biggest teachers. They can laugh and play and have fun and then be sad and then laugh and play and have fun. And I think they can teach us so much, and it's okay to do both of those things. And you're not disrespecting your loved one when you enjoy a moment. It's actually quite nice. It's a gift too. So that's all. Thanks.
I'm going to ask Adrienne Spencer if she would come up and share her experience with us.
Hi, everyone. My journey to hope began 2 years ago. In 2022, I lost my uncle and my mom in April, my best friend in September, and my mother-in-law on Christmas Eve. It was continual grieving, and it's like you're getting over one, and you have another one, and then you have another one, and I couldn't find a place to breathe, and I needed to breathe. I realize it now. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just crying all the time and, trying to get everything done, and I couldn't do it. And my husband and my 2 daughters recognized that I needed help. And my husband said, there is a place called Hope for the Bereaved. Don't know too much about it, but why don't you try there? I said, no. I was a teacher and former administrator. I'm the one that helped people or, referred them to the guidance counselor or the social workers or whatever. No, I can't do that. And then I realized, yes, I need to. So my husband made the initial call, and he called Walt, and then he said, I'm going back and forth with dates. You're going to have to call Walt. So it took me, I think, a day or 2, and I finally called Walt, set up a time with him, and went in, and I think cried through the whole first session. But he picked me up. And it wasn't anybody in the family. It was some stranger just listening to my story. And he gave me great compassion and the strength to move forward. And I think I needed that from someone outside the family. There are 2 things that I have learned going to some of the sessions at Hope for the Bereaved, and they are constant for me. One is that there is no time limit on grieving. There are people in these sessions who have come for years, and then there are people who are new, who just lost someone, and there's no time limit. And I was afraid after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, that what's wrong with me? I can't get through this. I'm not getting through this. What am I going to do? That helped take some of the pressure off me, what I heard in some of those meetings. So that support has been amazing. The second one is that you're not alone. There is someone there to help you get through these things. It might not be the family member that you thought it was going to be, because it might have been the loss. And I found that through the groups that I have gone to and through Walt. I had a friend who, we used to go to a show every year, Cortland Repertory Theater, and she used to invite me to go. And she asked me to go. It was 3 months after my mom had passed away, and we were dealing with lawyers, estate stuff, and cleaning things out and this and that. And I said, I can't go. I can't go. I just can't go. She goes, well, it's been a couple months. And then I really thought something was wrong with me. I go, there is something wrong with me. So I went back to Walt, and again, gave me some confidence to keep moving forward. Just things I needed to hear. Again, not so much from the family, but from maybe somebody outside who had been dealing with some of this stuff. People grieve in their own way, and part of my healing was coming from hope. I think a lot of it, that I wasn't alone. When my dad had passed away 12 years ago, my sister and I took on the responsibility of my mom. And so we were dealing with my mom all the time. She was pretty independent until the last maybe 3 years of her life. And at that time I could no longer do some personal care needs for her, so we had to hire an aide. But I was there every day making dinner every night, or I'd bring her over to my house, or the kids would help out. So every night we were with her. Every day I'd go and visit her when I retired, and helping her out. At the end, she wanted to pass away in her house, so I granted that wish. I was the healthcare proxy, and I ended up having to give her morphine. I had never done that before, and I go, how am I going to do this? But her doctor worked with me through the 2 weeks, and I was able to make it through. That loss to me, my mom and dad were the core of our family. So once they passed away, I was the oldest now of all the cousins, the sisters, and whatever, and I felt orphaned. So since going to the meetings, I know other people have felt that way too. And so I didn't feel alone. But the loss that you have it's just really hard. But we all do what we have to do, and we get to a point where we just say, okay, I can do this, and you keep going until you crash. There are a lot of things that go through your mind. That last day was very hard, and traditions were made. I was telling the group, this was my second Thanksgiving without my mom. Last year, I have a double oven. This is just a silly story. I wanted everything to be perfect. And I was running around. The morning I was crying, I went to the cemetery, running around, getting the food. People were bringing stuff, the kids. And so my son-in-law came in, and I said, okay, we're putting the turkey in. I turned the oven on, we're putting the turkey in. He put the turkey in the oven, and everything was fine. About 2 hours later, hour and a half, 2 hours later, I go, I'm not smelling that turkey. What's going on? I went in. And it was Thanksgiving the year before that my oven had bit the dust. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Well, I thought the same thing happened this year. And come to find out, my double oven, I turned the upper oven on, and the turkey went in the lower oven. So the kids were all laughing. I'm yelling at my husband. I go, something's wrong with the oven. What are we gonna do? He goes, what do you mean something's wrong with the oven? The kids were actually taping, they had their phones out, and they were listening to this conversation. So they brought that up this year. See, I had to turn the oven back on. We ate like at 8 o'clock at night, but it was something funny that we were laughing about this year. So that made us get through the holiday. So sometimes you have to find those funny moments. Of course, it was on me. But you have to find those funny moments, and you have to laugh a little bit when you can. And that was our moment to laugh. And then they sent the text around with the whole conversation. And Mom, why are you yelling at Dad? Dad, why are you yelling at me? So he said, you turned the wrong oven on. So we had a good laugh about that. I got a quote from Vicki Harrison. Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm, and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. And I think, I love that quote, and I think that I've tried to practice some of that, even though it's still hard. I know that you will survive, you can find a purpose in all this chaos, and moving on doesn't necessarily mean you're letting go, because I don't know if you can ever really let go, but you can move on. The sessions at Hope have offered me an opportunity to be me. Listening to others' journeys has taught me that I'm not alone, and it's okay to get angry, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be sad. You gotta laugh, and you've gotta enjoy some of those moments if you can. And you can't feel guilty. Do I still feel guilty? Yes. Should I have done more? Yes. But it's lessening more now. Whether you've lost a parent, a child, a spouse, an animal, or a victim to murder or suicide, the grieving is immense, and we grieve in our own ways. And tears are not a sign of weakness. It's the mark of that you're human. We can't be so hard on ourselves so much. Hope has helped me get through some of those moments. I'm very, very appreciative of that support I hope that for all of you that you find strength in laughter and hope in this journey, because it's now a new norm for all of us who have lost someone. And hopefully you will have peace through the holidays and find comfort in knowing that there is a reason that you are still here. And hang on to that. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to do the candle lighting ceremony. And I had the sheet up here. I don't know where it got. Somebody must have walked off of my sheet. We're going to be lighting 5 candles tonight. And I think everybody has the candle lighting ceremony sheet with them. So I'm going to ask Katie if she would come and do the first candle for us. As we light these 5 candles in memory of and in honor of you, we light one for our grief, one for our courage, one for our memories, and one for our love, and one for our hope. This candle represents our grief. The pain of losing you is intense. Reminds us of the depth of our love for you. This candle represents our courage to confront our sorrow, to comfort each other, and to change our lives. This candle is in your memory. The times we laughed, the times we cried, the times we were angry with each other, the silly things you did, and the caring and joy you gave to us. Kristen? This candle is the light of love. As we enter this holiday season, day by day, we cherish the special place in our hearts that will always be reserved for you. We thank you for the gift of your living brought to each of us. And Matt, would you? And this candle is the light of hope. It reminds us of the love and the memories of you that are ours forever. May the glow of the flame be our source of hopefulness now and forever. We love you. We'll just take a couple moments of silence and just think about our loved one and welcome them into our holiday season this year. At this moment, I want to ask Katie if she would share her experience with us.
Hi, everyone. My name's Katie, and I first entered Hope almost 8 years ago after my boyfriend Jerry died of an unintentional fentanyl overdose, and that was December 30th, 2016. So my first holiday season was coming up on Christmas, but also coming up on the first anniversary of his passing. So I will start it with I did everything wrong, and we can talk about the second one. I sat through groups. I heard everything that these incredible people were saying. I went to Coping with the Holidays, and I learned to tell people when I couldn't do things or go places and drive myself and not power through and feel out my feelings and not push them down. And I did the exact opposite and burned myself out completely and learned a lesson that year. So the next year, I did all the same things again, and I went to group again, and I went to Coping with the Holidays a second time and started to really baby steps listen to that advice and take that advice to heart. And I got better at saying, I'd love to be there, but I will only be there if I can. And I got better at driving myself places and knowing when I needed to excuse myself. And I got better at building new traditions because we closed on our new house on December 23rd, so there was nothing in the house on Christmas, and then 7 days after closing on the house, he was gone. So there was no Christmas that year, and there were no traditions in that house, and somehow I had to learn to rebuild them. So that second Christmas, I put up a tree in his honor, and still to this day I put up a tree in his honor. And Christmases, probably 2 or 3 years later, I started realizing that my purpose in carrying him forward during the holidays was giving back. So I found the Angel Stockings Project, which was created by a grieving mom who got her son's stocking out the first Christmas and didn't know what to do with it. And her daughter said, "Mom, why don't you fill this stocking and give it to someone else in need?" And she now fills hundreds of stockings every year, and each stocking goes to somebody in recovery or someone being treated for mental illness. And each year I fill stockings in Jerry's memory and donate them to the Angel Stockings program. Unfortunately, my grief journey did not end there because on, July 29th, 2021, my identical twin sister passed away unexpectedly, leaving her little boy behind. So now I navigate this world of two grief journeys, very separate, very different, but one, I guess, making the other more fresh. So there I was, my life rebuilt, doing very well, and then suffering another very traumatic, unexpected loss kind of put me right back to where I was. So for Chrissy's loss, I get by making the holidays as magical as it was when we were children for her little boy. And the biggest thing, not the biggest thing, because I can go on and on about the things that Hope has taught me, but being in the overdose group with all these parents who had lost children prepared me in the greatest way to help my parents live through that same loss. And I kind of know when to tiptoe versus when to push the issue. I know when to drag them out of their comfort zones, and I know when to listen when they're really having a no day. And I know as much as someone outside of their brains can what it's like to live with both children here and children no longer here, which is a hard line. It's hard to be grieving and celebrating at the same time, but it's possible to be grieving and celebrating at the same time. And like you said, I think you don't know that until you see children grieve, and there they are living this beautiful life, and they know something is gone, but they still see the beauty that's right in front of them and not what's gone. I think my biggest things that I take away from Hope have been said many times here tonight is one, that there is no end to this, and I think people have asked me multiple times to speak at Coping with the Holidays, and I've always said no, because the holiday season coming up on 8 years later, to me, is still as difficult as it was the first year, whereas birthdays have become easier and angelversaries have become easier, but something about walking into this world where there are lights and it's the most wonderful time of the year and it's holly jolly, and living through that and people's complete tables and complete family pictures when you have something so blatantly missing is always going to be difficult. So knowing that, that's all right. It's okay that I'm still sad 8 years later and 3.5 years later. Knowing that is huge, that Hope taught me. And knowing that it's okay, though, to celebrate. I remember the first time laughing after Jerry died, and I caught myself oh my gosh, I shouldn't be laughing. This is awful. This is traumatic. And then it gets easier after you do it, and you are allowed to be happy, and you are allowed to celebrate and be sad at the same time. And just finding a purpose. And that purpose for me is probably very different than it is for someone else. And for me, giving back in Jerry's memory and making Christmas magical for Nicholas is how I give back. And if for you, it's putting those angels on your Christmas tree, or cooking the same meal that your mom cooked, or making the Christmas cookies. Find that little thing that keeps them alive in your holiday and do it. And do it quietly, do it loudly, do it however works for your grief. But part of grieving also is that it's unique. And I don't think I realized how unique it was until I walked 2 grief journeys, both very young people, both dying unexpectedly, both couldn't be closer to my life. And when I stop and think about how different those 2 journeys were, I realize how different our 2 journeys are and how different our 2 journeys are. But you can still look at that person and say, I get it. This holiday's hard. And that birthday is hard. And we're kind of in this together, walking side by side, not the same footsteps, but with someone right next to you. So I think those are my biggest lessons that Hope, and reach out. I was that person who sat in the parking lot at Hope and said, I'll go once just to tell people that I went, but support group is definitely not for me. And then I went every month for 3 years, probably. More than that. If I hadn't got into nursing school, I might still be going to meetings. So find that support that works for you, reach out for help, and find help in the places that maybe you don't expect it to be. There are going to be those friends and those family members that you think are going to be those pillars of support, and if you don't open yourself to looking outside of that, you can end up very let down when those people aren't it. But those pillars are there. They're just not always who you expect them to be. I think that's it.
And we also have with us tonight one of our group facilitators for the Parents Without Parents, Alex, and she'd like to say a couple things to us.
Hi, everybody. So in 2007, my mother was injured in a routine surgery, which led to over 13 more surgeries in the next decade. And being an only child and the child of an alcoholic father, who was unable to really tend to my mother's needs, I became a caretaker at a young age. For 9 years, I helped take care of my mom until she passed in 2016. But due to, again, my father's needs, I wasn't really able to grieve her passing until he then passed from complete liver failure not even a year later. In this time, I was also working in care management, where I was responsible for the needs of a large caseload. And I was also going through fertility treatment, as I had already had my first miscarriage and was several years into trying to have a baby. After my dad passed, I found myself in a strange passage of feeling both like an orphan, but also like the matriarch at the same time, because I knew I had to carry on my family's traditions, but I didn't know who I was carrying them on for anymore. And I found myself putting up her decorations and making her foods and calling her friends and extended family and trying to do all of the things that she would have done, but I wasn't happy. And I realized that one day I was tired and that my way of coping with the holidays needed to be to not for a little bit. Being a caretaker, you know, if any of you have ever been a caretaker, you know that your time isn't necessarily yours. Your errands become theirs, your free time becomes theirs. You can't even put your phone on silent because something may happen. So I decided in that time to take some holidays, to take actually a couple years, and my coping with the holidays was to treat them as just another day. I would make dinner, I'd spend time with my husband, I just went about it as it was. And it was slow, and it was after I did start a family of my own. I was able to have a son and twin daughters. And it's now that they are old enough to appreciate the holidays and understand the holidays that I am able to really see that magic and that joy again. And I am grateful for my ability to be able to just recognize that I wasn't doing any of it for me, but that I was doing all of it for everybody else. And I needed to take that time that I hadn't had over the last decade to just be. And so if anybody is feeling a pressure to do something for somebody else other than themselves, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say I need space. It's okay to say you need to rest. And as you want and can, add in the little things. You know, the first year I started celebrating again, I put up a tree and I plugged in the lights, and there you go. It was good. And then I started making one of my mom's recipes that I knew I loved, and unfortunately she had never been able to give me the recipe, so I kind of started playing around to make it as close as I could, but I also added a secret ingredient, and I definitely think it's actually better now. Her birthday was actually just the other day, and my kids and I made her a cake, and we sang her happy birthday. And so each year I'm a little more comfortable celebrating the holidays, but I am taking them as it comes, and I am doing it as I am comfortable, and that's a lesson I'm gonna kind of live my life for, is to do things that make myself and my family happy, and that's just the way I gotta do. Thank you.
As I shared in the beginning, I too, like Alex, I was a caregiver. I was caregiving for my dad, who was a stroke victim, caring for my mom, who had advanced dementia, and I had both of them in the same nursing home. They were 4 rooms apart from one another. And it gets tiring. You know, you're running and you're running and you're running and you're doing, and sometimes you forget to take that time to just breathe. And when my dad passed, that first Christmas after he passed, I thought, what do I do? Because my mom at times couldn't remember that my father died. And so I brought my mom home to have dinner, and my partner was there, and his mom came, and I thought, okay, I'm not doing the same dinner, so what am I going to do differently this year? So I made salmon. We had salmon, we had oven roasted potatoes and different things to eat, and we sat at the table and we talked and we shared, and we even talked about my dad. And my mom asked, well, where is he? And I just slightly said, he can't be here today, but he's here in spirit. And the thing that I remembered the most when I think of Christmas and I think of my dad is the last Christmas that my dad was alive. I had him home with my mom, and my partner was there, and we made a special dinner. And we were sitting there at the dinner table eating and talking, and my father just lifted his head up and he looked around the room and he said, "This is like old times." And I think of that now at Christmas time when I put up the tree and I do all that stuff, that I'm honoring them by doing that. And I'm carrying on that memory, that tradition that I've learned. And then when my partner died, he died on January the 6th. That next Christmas, as I said, it was hard because I was grieving my dad too, because when Wes died, my dad's grief came up because I was so busy taking care of my mom that I never really grieved properly. And it all came up at the same time. And again, I was able to ask for help, and that's what Hope told me. It's okay to say, I can't do this. And I was able to pick up the phone and call and say, can you help me? Taking that step. And what I do now is, and I started to do it this year, but every year I would go to the nursing home and I take 2 tags off a tree, one for a man and one for a woman. And I go out and buy a gift. And then I mark the tag from a special angel in memory of my mom and dad. So I bring them into my Christmas in that way. With my partner, it's doing different things that I would normally, that we would do together. And putting the ornaments on the tree. My Christmas tree is not a tree of like a special theme. My tree is a memory tree because I have ornaments on my tree from people who have passed that they made for me, handcrafted ornaments, special ornaments that were given to me. So when I decorate my tree, they all become a part of my Christmas now. And I sit on Christmas Day and I look at that tree on Christmas Eve and I just think of them. And I think of all the great stories that I can tell about them. And that's one of the things that Hope for Bereaved did for me. It's given me the permission to say, I can't do this alone. It's given me the permission to honor them in special ways, to talk about them. And when I go home for this Christmas to my niece's house for the holiday, I will be taking the candle with me and lighting that candle because now my brother-in-law is included in that too. We lost him in September 2000, 3 months after my mom died. And my sister's double grieving right now. And I will be lighting that candle, bringing them all to the table this Christmas again. And I do that some nights even when I was by myself living alone. The counselor said to me, light the candle at night and invite them to the dinner table with you and talk to them while you're eating dinner. And that's what I would do. I would sit and have a conversation with them. Didn't get answers, but but I shared what was going on in my life and what was happening. It's giving ourselves permission to do what we need to do to get through. Because that's what our loved ones would want. They don't want us to sit and wallow. They want us to go on and live our life and enjoy our life and give ourselves permission to do that. As a counselor at Hope, I always tell people the first year is hard, and sometimes the second year is hard too, because depending on the nature of the death that occurred, if it is a sudden car accident, a deadly car accident, if it is a murder, a suicide, a drug overdose, we're in shock for quite a while sometime. And then as the shock wears off, the reality comes to light. For those who are going through a murder, they're going through that first year of grieving, and they start to move forward, and then up comes the trial, and everything comes back up again. And I always tell people, it's okay to say, I can't do this, or can you help me? And I stress that a lot. Ask for help. When it comes to the holiday, it's okay to do things different. It's okay to change up the meal. It's okay to come up with your own memorial of your loved one. Write a poem to your loved one. Write a letter to them. We had a woman whose son died, and that first Christmas after he died, she went out and bought a small live Christmas tree and put it on a table in her entryway as you come in the front door. And everybody that came was asked to bring an angel. And they had an angel tree in memory of her son, Matt. And when Christmas was over, they took that tree and planted it in the front yard. And every Christmas, she puts the angels on the tree. That's her way of honoring her son. Visiting the cemetery, decorating the grave. One of the things too is providing, when you go to church, if you traditionally went to maybe midnight services, or if you're celebrating Hanukkah and you went to synagogue at a certain time, or go to a different synagogue this year if that's the case. The year after Wes died, that's what I did. I normally went to midnight mass. I went to Christmas morning mass that year. Designate an ornament, or maybe you find something that you know that they would really love. Purchase that ornament and put it on your tree in their memory and say, this one's for you. Buy a gift, like I said, and give it to someone. It's the same thing that Katie was saying. Purchase a gift and give it to somebody who may not have a gift for Christmas. One of the things they say too sometimes is putting an empty chair at the table and putting a place setting. And when everybody sits down, that seat remains empty. For me, that was a little too hard. For me, it was too much in your face. I found the candle more softer and gentler. But some people do that. They set that empty place setting. Volunteer at an organization where you can help. Our founder, Tree Shenik, the Christmas after her daughter Mary died, her and her family went to work in a soup kitchen. They volunteered because they couldn't be at home. They didn't want to be at home with all that hoopla going on. So they went to volunteer in a soup kitchen. That's how they celebrated their first Christmas after Mary died. My suggestion too is if you're going through this first holiday and you're struggling, call Hope. Someone there will be happy to talk with you, share with you. We still have other meetings this month that will be taking place. Bereaved Parent Group, Parents Without Parents are still going to be meeting. And please, even in January, come to one of our groups. They are very, very helpful to be in a room with other people who are going through what you're going through. To be able to sit with a group of people and say, this, excuse me for saying it, sucks. And I heard that a lot in group. And it's true. Grieving is not an easy thing. It's hard. And I often tell men to come in. And I could see them sitting here and it's like they're holding back and holding back. I said, you know what? Here's the tissues, cry. It's okay to cry. Crying is healthy, especially when we're grieving. There's an endorphin in grief tears that's healing. And after you have a good cry, you feel like you've been cleansed. You feel lighter. You feel like, I can breathe. Give yourself permission to cry. When someone we love dies, our memories of them become our treasure, and that is so true. I was sharing with a couple people here tonight from Hope that last night I was thinking of my partner a lot, and something told me something in my system kept saying to me, go get the box, get the box. And I went in and I brought out the box of all the different cards that he gave me over the years, and I sat there and I read some of them. And the message that I got in every card was, I love you. And I thought to myself, that was him telling me that he loved me. That was his way of giving me the message. At Hope for Bereaved, we have 7 different support groups that take place throughout the month. We have at the beginning of the month a young widower group. It's for widowers that are in their 30s, 40s, some even in their 20s. We have a senior group that meets on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's for all senior citizens, and it's a big group. A lot of support comes out of that group. I facilitate the Family and Friends group that's on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. That is for anyone who has suffered the loss, whether it's a parent, a friend, a sibling, a grandparent, anyone can come to that group. We have a suicide support group for those who lost a loved one to a suicide, a drug overdose support group, a bereaved parent group for anyone who's lost a child. We also do a group for infant death, when someone loses a baby before it's even born, or someone who's lost a baby shortly after the birth. They used to have them in one room together, but what we found was people who lost a child at birth never had the opportunity to hold that baby, never get that opportunity to do what a lot of bereaved parents get to do. So we separated them. We also have our Parents Without Parents, and that's a new group. It's about 5 months old now, I believe. And then after the first of the year, I'm also looking to start an LGBT group for people in the LGBT community who are grieving. We do get a lot of LGBT people to come to some of our groups, but I want to have an opportunity for people who still feel like they're not safe, to have a place where they can come and do that and grieve and feel like I can say what I need to say here. All of our services, our support groups, our counseling are all free of charge to the bereaved. There is no charge for our services at Hope. If you want to make a donation, we gladly accept donations. We also have a memorial garden on the Onondaga Lake Parkway, the Butterfly Garden of Hope. And we sell bricks that could be put in the pathway. We do wedding ceremonies at the Butterfly Garden. And every year in around September, we do a memorial service to honor all of those who have died. And remember all those who just had a new brick put in the garden, so that the person who purchased the brick can come and see it, and a way of honoring them in a special way. I'm just feeling a lot of feelings right now. But the one thing I can say is, I never thought when I went to Hope for help that I'd be helping others today who are walking the same path that I walked suffering the same, hurting with the same feelings that I felt, shedding tears out of hurt and pain. And today I get to tell people it will get better, and it does, in time. Time, talk, and tears. And I am so grateful tonight to my higher power, who I call God, for giving me this opportunity. And I think it's one of the best jobs I've ever had. And people say, well, don't you get tired? Isn't it hard to listen to these stories? Yes, sometimes it does bring up things for me. But the thing is when I watch somebody come in that's so broken, and after a couple visits, watch them walk out with a smile on their face, it's like, wow, it's working. It's working. And I shared that the other night in my group when we did the candle lighting service and all that I think that's one of the greatest parts that I enjoy, is when I see that person smiling. And I'm internally grateful for this opportunity in my life. Does anybody here have any questions that maybe we can answer for you? If I can't, maybe one of our other speakers will be willing, or if there's something you want to ask one of them, this is an opportunity to do that.
I have a friend in Oswego. Is there a similar group up there?
There are no groups up in Oswego, sir, but we do counseling by Zoom. We do it over the phone. And in our support groups, people come in by Zoom also. You can join our support group through Zoom and be a part of the group and interact with the group just like you were sitting in the room. So if you do have somebody up in Oswego that's grieving, have them call us and we will make arrangements to set up counseling with them by phone or by Zoom. You're welcome. Anyone else have any? Also, to make sure that everybody understands too, that Hope is a non-for-profit. It was founded in 1978, 1 year after Tree Shennick's daughter, Mary, was killed in a car accident. And as I said, Tree said that first year, they didn't want to be home for the holidays, so they went to work in the soup kitchen. That second year, she was working for Family Life in the Bishop Harrison Center next door. At that time, it was Bishop Harrison. And she asked Father Joe Phillips, who was the director of Family Life at that time, if they can do a support group at Christmas time for those who are grieving the loved one at the holidays. He agreed to it. He said, I had no clue how many people were going to show up, how it was going to turn out. And he said that room was packed. And when that night was over, people came up and said, when can we meet again? And that was the beginning of Hope for Bereaved. And now we're going to our 45th year of helping in the community. And I think Hope for Bereaved is one of the only organizations, I think in upstate New York, that provides this kind of service to people in the community. And Therese has since retired, and she is still with us today. And I just feel very blessed to be a part of this organization. Does anybody have any other questions or anything that we can answer for you? Or and it's great to hear the sounds of a baby in the room.
She was so quiet 2 weeks
No,
ago.
it's fine. It's great to hear it. She's sharing with us. So if nobody else has anything that they need to offer, there, like I said, there are refreshments in the back. Please help yourself. And I thank you tonight for coming out. Did you have something, Meg?
I would just like to say, my name is Meg Cassandra, and I have the privilege of being pastoral associate here at All Saints Parish. And I just want to thank you and thank all of you for sharing your time, and what a privilege it is for us to be able to participate in this, what we would call ministry. I'm not sure if you're happy with that word, but
That's fine.
it's absolutely a ministry, and it's so vitally important.
And All Saints is my second home. This is my parish, and it's a phenomenal place to come to. So thank you, everyone, and tonight I'm just going to wish everyone a very peaceful and loving holiday. Thank you. Take care. Be safe driving home.